Right, this is my session called Direct the Desktop. This is the first time I've ever presented at E2E. It's the first time I've ever presented anywhere, so hopefully you guys will take it easy. Thank you. Right, okay, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sean Ritchie. I've been blogging for about a year now. I've been working with Citrix products for about 11 years. So that's my blog site and my Twitter handle there. So, is anyone here already using Desktop Director at all? A few people. And do anyone intend to implement Desktop Director? A few people as well. Okay. And for those of you that have actually implemented it, has it worked well or have you run into issues? Just to show of hands. Right. So if you don't know Desktop Director, what it is a free web-based GUI for Zen Desktop and Zen App, primarily for first and second line stuff. So troubleshooting Zen App sessions, Zen Desktop sessions, HDX type stuff. You get some good reports in there which I'll show you later, and you can do stuff like log off sessions, reset sessions, reboot VDIs, reset personal V-disks, all the kind of stuff that you want to give to your first and second line guys without giving them the full console. So it's all web based. And it will run through a browser. So it basically just sits on top of IIS. The latest version is Desktop Director 2.1, which works with Zen App 6.5, Zen Desktop 5 Service Pack 1 and above. But with Zen Desktop 5 Service Pack 1, you don't get the HDX reports that I'll show you later on. So this is the logon screen for Desktop Director, and you get to that basically by going to your server name / Desktop Director. So if you're just using Desktop Director with Zen App, this is the kind of screen that you'll get once you log in. You just get a search box basically. If you're using it with Zen Desktop or Zen Desktop and Zen App, then you're going to get this screen here. So what you've got on here is basically an overview of your Zen Desktop environment. So you see up here, you've got information about your desktops, like which ones are unregistered, high CPU, that kind of thing. Here you've got information about your hosting servers, so your Zen servers, your ESX servers or Hyper-V servers. Here you've got your Zen Desktop catalogs, and here your Zen Desktop groups, and then down here you've got information about the usage of your catalogs, so the percentage of desktops in use, unregistered, ready, disconnected, etc. And then down here you've got the same but in a graphical representation. Unfortunately you don't get anything of this nature for Zen App, so you don't get this console view here. So basically with Zen App you just get this screen here, and you can then search for users, which will then give you a list of the sessions that they have for Zen App. So in the top right hand corner you've got this search box here. This search is Active Directory, and it's an instant search, so as soon as you start typing you're going to see names appearing. And then if you then click on one of the names, it's going to bring up this information in the left hand side here. So you're going to see basically the Zen App sessions that they've got active, and then their desktop, so Zen App Desktop or VDIs here. So this is the, if you click on a XenApp session, this is the kind of information that you're going to see. So you've got the HDX report here, and then you've got information about the XenApp farm, and then information about the endpoint that they've connected from. So whether they came in via web receiver, their endpoint IP address, the profile path, and then you've got basic information about CPU, memory, network of the XenApp server there. So this HDX information, so that and that and that, is basically retrieved using WinRM, and I'll show you how you configure that later on.
Does it require the HDX monitor installed?
No, it doesn't. No. So this does require a hotfix to be installed on your XenApp servers, which I'll show you later. So this is the same view that you'll see for a Zen desktop session. So you've got the information about the session here. So the whether it's a pulled VDI, the catalog, desktop group, information about the hosting server, so your hypervisor here, the amount of memory, CPU in the VDI, and then information about the vDisk. This is information about the endpoint that they've connected from. Same stuff that you see in XenApp. This is the HDX report. And then you've got the same, the memory, the CPU, the network information. And then you've got information about the hypervisor here. There's some things that are not showing up here, some column headings that I'm not sure why they're not showing there. Then you've got these basically buttons here that allow you to perform certain actions on the VDI. These are all controlled by the role that they've been permissioned in Zen Desktop. So obviously, depending on the role that you assign them, then they'll have permission to do these things or not. So you've got power control for rebooting, resetting the VDI, resetting the personal vDisk, and then you've got session control, so logging off the user, shadowing the user, or sending a message. Shadowing just uses Windows Remote Assistant, so when you hit that shadow, it's going to start a remote assistant session, which you need to obviously have configured via GPO to allow that to work. So I'll explain that later as well.
So can anybody who has access to Desktop Director kill a session of any user?
It will depend how you configure that in your Zen Desktop environment. So in your Zen Desktop environment, you have desktop groups, and then you have roles, and then you assign roles to an AD group, and then you give that role a permission to a desktop group. So say if you have, Singapore desktop group, you could assign your help desk group permissions to that, so you have the various roles, so you can have view only, or help desk role, or administrator, and I can't remember exactly what all the roles are. But
So it won't work with Zen Desktop 4, I guess. Because you don't have the rows there.
I don't think it will. No, so this version will work with 5.5 Service Pack 1 and above, and then Zen Desktop, Desktop Director 2. I'm not sure if it works with Zen Desktop 4. I'll have to check that. In the top right of the screen, you've got information about the user. So this is pulled from Active Directory. So I think this is really useful for your help desk staff. So you've got the phone number pulled from Active Directory, their email address, and then if you then click on the user, then this box will pop up, and you've got more information, their address, other phone numbers, that sort of thing. So that's sort of covering the features of Desktop Director.
Sure.
Yeah.
That screen we've got all the information about their session and servers.
Yeah.
Can you export that into a text file? Or?
Do you mean the
whole screen where it's got everything
this one?
about? No, keep going up. Keep
back,
going
back, back. The basically
all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Not the graph, but
this report here you can download as an XML file. So the HGX report.
I'm thinking the help desk need to raise a ticket to send to second level or something.
Mm-hmm.
If they can get all that information into the ticket.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think there is a way to do that. I'm aware of. I know that this stuff here you can download as an XML file, so a report basically. So yeah, if you see up there, you've got download system report.
Yeah, I mean, it's all that stuff on the left-hand column. That's
Yeah, I'm not sure if it includes all of that. I'll have to double check that. Yeah. Right, so that's sort of covering the features. Now I'll go over how you install Desktop Director. You can't install Desktop Director 2.1 directly, so you have to first install Desktop Director 2, and then you have to upgrade to Desktop Director 2.1, and then there's an actual hotfix called 2.1.1, which fixes some issues that you might get when upgrading from 2 to 2.1. So, yeah, it's mad really, and I don't understand, because Desktop Director 2.1 you can download with XenApp 6.5, but Desktop Director 2 you have to download as part of Zen Desktop 5.5. So the setup's not exactly easy, and it gets worse, and I'll show you.
Nice.
So basically, to get Desktop Director 2, I was doing this last night because when I first did the presentation, it was screenshots from the old Citrix download. So I decided to update it last night, and it took me quite a long time to find it. So basically, to get Desktop Director 2, you go to Zen Desktop 5.5. And you go to product software, and then down the bottom you have disk packages, so you expand that, and then you'll find there Desktop Director 2. So you download that first and install that first, and you install it, by the way, on top of IIS, so you have to have IIS and all the correct role services installed. Then Desktop Director 2.1, you go to XenApp Components.
Do you need to install it on a XenApp server?
No, so you install Desktop Director, installs on an IIS server, and then there's certain components that you need to configure on your XenApp servers. I'll show you that later. So in the Zen Desktop and XenApp best practices, they recommend that you have dedicated IIS servers if you're more than 50 concurrent users. So you can put it on your web interface server, I guess, but if you're, a small, even medium-sized deployment, they recommend that you have dedicated servers and you put a load balancer in front of them, so Netscaler or something like that. So this is the 2.1.1 fix that I was talking about, which you need to install after 2.1. You might have some issues of upgrading, so they released this. So that's CTX 132904. And then you need to install this HDX hotfix on your XenApp servers. Otherwise you might have some issues with getting that HDX report from XenApp. And that is CTX 131221. So that just about covers installing it. And then the next bit is configuring it, which is probably as cumbersome as installing it. So a lot of the configuration is done through the IIS console. So you go to wherever you've installed the site, and you'll see Desktop Director site up there. And then what you've got is most of the configuration is done in application settings. So in application settings, you've got up here you've got connector.winrm.identity. By default, that is set to user. What that is when your Desktop Director server connects to the endpoints to pull that HDX report, it uses WinRM, and it has to connect to those endpoints under a security principle. So if this is set to user, it's going to connect to the endpoints using the user account that is currently logged into Desktop Director website. What you can do is you can set that to service, and then it's going to use the computer account of the Desktop Director server to connect to the endpoint to get that HDX report. So it's probably easier to set that to service, and then you've just got to put 1 or 2 or 3 of your Desktop Director computer accounts in a group, and that group is then configured on the endpoints. Otherwise, you have to put all your Desktop Director users into a group. Down here you've got the auto-discovery addresses, so that basically points to your Zen Desktop controller to basically get all the session information. You can only have one controller per farm, so it's not load balanced or anything. So if that controller goes down, then you're going to basically lose all your session information. So again, you're going to want to load balance that using a NetScaler. If you have multiple farms, then you put basically a comma and multiple server names in there. Below that is auto-discovery addresses XA. It's the same thing, but for XenApp. On a default installation, you won't have that there, so you'll actually need to add that in. And then down here you've got enable SSL check. If you're not using an SSL certificate on your Desktop Director site, if that's set to true, then you're going to see an error on the logon screen. So if you're not using SSL certificate, just set that to false. And then one other configuration that you do in IIS is basically the timeout of the website, and that's done in the session state here in IIS. And basically you've got the timeout here, I think up to 245 minutes you can set that. So that's the configuration that you do in IIS. I talked about WinRM. So you've got the 2 models. The trusted subsystem model is where it uses the Desktop Director computer account to connect to the endpoint. And then the impersonation model is where it uses the user account. So whatever model you choose is what you basically configure here, user or service. And basically you have to run this command on all of your XenApp servers and all of your VDIs. Otherwise that WinRM and that HDX report is not going to work. So you basically configure a group, put your users in it, or your Desktop Director servers, and then run this command on all of your endpoints, and that's going to basically allow it to pull that HDX report. One thing I found with XenApp is unless you also populate this local group on your XenApp servers with this group here, then it's not going to work on XenApp either. I couldn't find that in any of the documentation whatsoever. So basically you've got a local group there. Make sure that you also put the group that you're configuring your subsystem model into that group on your XenApp servers. So So that command there is run by this tool, which is Config Remote Management. It's on the Zen Desktop Media, or you can download it, this updated version, which is CTX 131.165. So that's WinRM. If you're using personal vDisks and you want a group to be able to reset the personal vDisks, then you need to configure this registry key on all your VDIs. So if you're using pooled infrastructure, then you want to configure this on your master template and redeploy it. So basically, just this registry key, populate with the group of the users that you want to be able to reset personal vDisks. So the dashboard view, which is what you see here for Zen Desktop, by default, if you configure users with the help desk role in Zen Desktop, when they log in, they won't see this dashboard view, which I think is quite nice. It's quite useful. It gives an overview of what's going on. So by default, help desk role will just get this view, which is basically just a search box where you can start searching for users. But if you want to give the help desk role the dashboard view, you can run this PowerShell command on your Zen Desktop controllers, and that will enable the dashboard view for the help desk role. So I talked about remote assistance. Remote assistance only works for Zen Desktop, and you have to configure it via this GPO, which will be applied to your Zen Desktop VDAs. It doesn't work for Zen App, unfortunately. I think I heard that in the new Excalibur that it will work for Zen App via remote assistance, I think. So the same as it works for Zen Desktop. But unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be any proper Zen App shadowing, as you might say. So, I think that covers it all really for installing. Yeah?
All these issues about configuring, has it been documented in eDocs, or is it something that you stumble upon and just collected here?
Some of it, yeah, quite a lot of it is in eDocs, but I mean the stuff about installing the 2.1.1 fix, installing the HDX fix on Zen App, it's not really in eDocs. I think the personal vDisk reg key, that's in there. The group that I was talking about for Zen App, that's not documented. And there's actually some mistakes in eDocs as well. So I think around that subsystem model, it tells you if you're configuring the impersonation model, the configuration they give you is actually incorrect. So yeah, but I've got an article on my website that covers it. And what I'm going to talk about next is my Res runbook. So I've been working with Res Automation Manager for a few months now, and I don't know if anyone here is using Automation Manager. Yeah, the Res guys obviously, and Ian, great. Right, well, if you're not using it, it's a great tool, and basically everything that I've just gone over in my presentation is basically all in my runbook. So if you're using Automation Manager, you can download this runbook and import it into your Automation Manager environment. Basically just plug in a few parameters and it will go and configure the whole of Desktop Director. So it's going to install the IIS role, all the role services, install Desktop Director, all the components, configure your Zen app and Zen desktop controllers, the dashboard view that I talked about, configure that WinRM command, so the config remote management with the group that you specify. It's going to install that WinRM hotfix on Zen app, so it will configure WinRM on your Zen app servers. Configure that registry key with the group that you specify for resetting the personal V disks, and it's about 60 meg to download. So I think compared to other run books, it's quite big, but I decided to include all the software in it because I think one of the pain in the arse of Desktop Director is trying to find all the correct software. So I thought just make it a big run book and all the software's in it, so you don't have to go searching for that. So basically this is where you can download the run book from my website. So bit.ly/ddres runbook. And I'll just quickly show you what, for those of you that don't know Automation Manager, this is what a run book sort of looks like. So it's a set of jobs here that will run on different Automation Manager agents or teams, which are basically groups of agents. So all these things here with $1 in front of them are basically parameters that you would fill in, and here are the parameters for the whole run book. So all the things that I talked about, basically you would specify here. So your Zen app controllers, the type of WinRM model you want to use, the timeout, the group that you want to give the personal vdisk reset permission to. Basically, yeah, it's all there. So you can spend, a good 2, 3, 4 hours setting up Desktop Director manually, and this will do it all in about 15 minutes. So that's it, done, with 40 seconds to go.